The moment I stepped into my wedding reception, my phone vibrated. I expected congratulations. Instead, I received a message from my boss's son. "You are fired. Consider it my wedding gift." I thought losing my job would be the worst thing that happened that day. 3 hours later, I looked at my phone and saw 108 missed calls. That was when I realized he had made the biggest mistake of his life. My name is Emma, and for 8 years, I worked as operations director at a rapidly growing logistics company. I wasn't the owner, and I wasn't part of the family that controlled the business. But everyone knew I was the person who kept things running when problems appeared. I worked long hours, missed vacations, and sacrificed weekends because I genuinely cared about the company. The owner, Richard, often told me I was the backbone of the business. Unfortunately, Richard was preparing for retirement, and his arrogant son, Kyle, had recently joined the company. Kyle believed that his last name made him smarter than everyone else. He had never built anything himself, but he acted as if he knew everything. For months, Kyle made my life difficult. He questioned decisions he didn't understand, interrupted meetings, and constantly tried to prove he was in charge. While most employees tolerated him, many privately complained about his behavior. The company had recently secured its largest contract in history with a national retailer. It was a deal worth millions and required careful coordination. I personally managed every stage of the project. I knew the client, understood the systems, and had built the trust necessary to keep everything moving smoothly. Richard knew this. The executive team knew this. Even Kyle knew it. But instead of appreciating my work, he seemed threatened by it. Every successful project made him look less important. Every compliment I received seemed to irritate him. My wedding day finally arrived after 2 years of planning. For the first time in months, I turned off work mode and focused on my future with Daniel, the man I loved. The ceremony was beautiful. Family members cried. Friends laughed. Everything felt perfect. Then my phone buzzed during the reception. The text came from Kyle. "You are fired. Consider it my gift to you. Effective immediately. Do not return to the office." My hands started shaking. At first, I thought it was a joke. Then I saw a follow-up message informing me that my company access had been terminated. I felt sick. Years of loyalty had ended through a text message sent during my wedding. Daniel noticed my expression immediately. After reading the message, he didn't panic. Instead, he smiled calmly and squeezed my hand. "Trust me," he said. "Enjoy your wedding." His reaction confused me, but I trusted him. For the next few hours, I tried to focus on my guests. I danced. I smiled for photos. I thanked relatives for attending, but deep down, I couldn't stop thinking about what had happened. Around midnight, I finally checked my phone again. The screen was flooded with notifications. Missed call after missed call after missed call. The number reached 108. There were messages from Kyle, executives, department managers, and even Richard himself. "Please call us immediately. Emergency. We need your help. Where are you? The client is threatening to cancel." I stared at the screen in disbelief. Only then did Daniel reveal something he had kept secret. Several months earlier, he had quietly invested in a technology consulting firm. That firm had recently been hired to audit systems connected to the major contract I managed. Daniel knew exactly how dependent the company was on my expertise because he had seen the reports firsthand. When Kyle fired me, he assumed anyone could replace me. He was wrong. # turning point. The moment my access was removed, critical workflows stopped functioning properly. Team leaders no longer had authorization pads. Vendor approvals became delayed. Delivery schedules started collapsing. The national retailer immediately noticed. Within hours, millions of dollars in shipments were at risk. Kyle had never bothered learning how the systems worked because he assumed leadership was simply about giving orders. He discovered too late that the company's most valuable asset wasn't software, equipment, or buildings. It was knowledge, and most of that knowledge sat inside the head of the employee he had just humiliated. Richard eventually left dozens of desperate voicemail messages. His voice sounded completely different from the confident businessman I had always known. For the first time, he sounded afraid. At 2 in the morning, I finally returned Richard's call. He apologized repeatedly. He explained that Kyle had acted without authorization. The board was furious. The client was threatening legal action. Investors had started asking questions. Then Kyle got on the phone. His confidence was gone. He begged. The same man who sent a cruel text during my wedding was now asking me to save the company. I listened quietly before responding. I reminded him of the message he sent. I reminded him of the years I spent helping build the business. I reminded him that respect cannot be demanded. It must be earned. Then I made a decision. If they wanted me back, I would return only as Chief Operations Officer with full authority over company systems and strategy. My compensation would double, and Kyle would have no control over my department. The board approved every condition before sunrise. Kyle had no choice. 2 weeks later, Richard officially retired. The board appointed me to the executive leadership team exactly as agreed. Kyle remained with the company, but his authority was dramatically reduced. The people who once feared speaking up finally had a voice. As for me, I returned to work with a completely different perspective. Loyalty is valuable, but self-respect is priceless. Kyle believed he could ruin the happiest day of my life with a single text message. Instead, his arrogance exposed his own weaknesses and changed my future for the better. Sometimes karma doesn't take years to arrive. Sometimes it takes only 3 hours and 108 missed calls. The text message that was supposed to destroy my wedding ended up becoming the most expensive mistake Kyle ever made. He tried to remind me that he had power. Instead, he learned who truly held the company together. And every time I see those 108 missed calls saved in my phone, I remember one simple truth. Never underestimate the person doing the work while you're busy taking the credit.